Content warning. This documentary covers sensitive criminal case material, including child abuse and sex trafficking. Viewer discretion is strongly advised. Greetings and welcome to all our dear listeners. Welcome to the 6th episode of the documentary series, The Epstein Files: Roots of a Nightmare. Thank you for being with us this far on this journey through this complex and dark case. In previous episodes, we followed Jeffrey Epstein's journey from childhood in Brooklyn to the heights of power on Wall Street. Together, we saw how a math teacher with no university degree became one of the most powerful men in America. We examined his network of influence with Prince Andrew and Ghislaine Maxwell. We traveled to the island of horror in the Caribbean and witnessed the crimes that took place in that apparent paradise. We analyzed his mysterious death in a Manhattan jail cell and concluded that perhaps we will never know what really happened that night. And in the previous episode, we looked at his legacy and the fate of his victims and associates. Today, however, we turn to one of the most important and controversial parts of this case, the released documents. Thousands of pages of documents released in January and February 2026 have lifted the veil on new secrets. Secrets that had never been revealed before and added new faces to this case. Let us journey together into the depths of these documents and see what new things we have learned about the Epstein case. What new names have appeared in these documents? What new connections have been revealed? And most importantly, why are some parts of these documents still classified? Chapter 1. The Epstein Files Transparency Act: The Fight for Truth. To understand the importance of the documents released in January and February 2026, we need to go back months earlier, to the days when activists, victims, and journalists were fighting for transparency in this case. In November 2025, after months of debate and controversy, the U.S. Congress passed a historic law, the Epstein Files Transparency Act. This law required the Department of Justice to release all documents related to the Epstein case, with minimal redactions and without censorship. This law was passed with overwhelming bipartisan support. Senators and representatives who had long called for transparency in this case finally achieved their goal. But this was not the end of the road. It was the beginning of a new phase in this complex case. Senator Richard Blumenthal, one of the main sponsors of the law, said in his speech to Congress, "The American people have a right to know the truth. The Epstein case has been shrouded in mystery for years. It's time for everything to be revealed." In January 2026, the first batch of these documents was released. Over 3 million pages of documents, including emails, notes, classified reports, videos, and photos. This was the largest document release in U.S. judicial history. News agencies and newspapers around the world immediately began analyzing these documents. In February of the same year, the second batch of documents was released, containing more details about Epstein's relationships with prominent figures. These documents sparked a new wave of shock and anger around the world and added new names to this case. The Department of Justice stated in a release, "These documents demonstrate our commitment to transparency and accountability. The public has a right to know what happened." However, many experts believed that important parts of the documents still remained unreleased. Spencer Kimbrough, an attorney for the victims, said in an interview, "This is an important step, but we still have a long way to go. Many names are still redacted, and many documents have not yet been released." Chapter 2. Ghislaine Maxwell's Emails: Confirmation of the Famous Photo and New Revelations. One of the most important and controversial revelations in these documents was Ghislaine Maxwell's emails. In these emails, Maxwell acknowledged the authenticity of the famous photograph of Prince Andrew and Virginia Giuffre. These emails dealt a fatal blow to Prince Andrew's credibility and renewed calls for him to testify in America. For years, Prince Andrew and his legal team insisted that the photo was fake or may have been doctored. In his infamous 2019 BBC interview, Andrew claimed he was at a Pizza Express branch in Woking that day. With sweat on his forehead, he tried to portray himself as innocent, but many viewers did not believe him. However, the released emails show that Maxwell, in her correspondence with Epstein, clearly referred to this photo and confirmed its authenticity. In one of these emails, dated January 2015, Maxwell wrote, "The photo with Andrew was taken in London. You were there, I was there. Everything is clear. I don't know why they keep denying it." In another email, Maxwell tells Epstein, "Andrew is worried. He says if this photo gets out, everything is over. I told him not to worry, that you have everything under control." This email shows how Epstein used these images to control powerful people. But this was only part of Maxwell's emails. In other emails, she discussed how to recruit girls and transport them to Epstein's island. In one email, Maxwell writes to Epstein, "I found 3 new girls. One of them is only 14 but very smart. I think she'll be suitable for special guests." These emails show that Maxwell was not only aware of Epstein's crimes, but also played an active role in them. She selected the girls, groomed them, and delivered them to Epstein and his friends. After the release of these emails, the family of Virginia Giuffre, who died in April 2025, issued a statement. The statement read, "Virginia fought her entire life for this moment. She always said the truth would eventually come out. Now it has happened, but she is no longer here to see it." In Britain, the release of these emails renewed calls for Prince Andrew to testify in America. A spokesman for the royal family said in a brief statement that King Charles III is seriously following the matter. But critics believed this response was insufficient and that the royal family should deal with this issue more transparently. Buckingham Palace has not yet responded officially to these emails, but sources close to the royal family say Prince Andrew is shocked and worried by these revelations. Chapter 3: Connections with the Middle East, Sultan Ahmed bin Sulayem, and the Kaaba cloth. One of the most controversial revelations in the new documents concerns Sultan Ahmed bin Sulayem, an Emirati businessman and the chairman and CEO of Dubai-based DP World. This company is one of the largest port operators in the world and has extensive economic influence internationally. In one document, an image was released showing Epstein cooking with bin Sulayem. Both appear relaxed together. This simple yet meaningful image shows that the relationship between Epstein and bin Sulayem was more than a superficial acquaintance. They spent time together, ate meals together, and likely discussed important topics. But even stranger, in another photo, Epstein and bin Sulayem are seen in front of a piece of the Kaaba cloth that has been laid on the ground. This image, released for the first time in January 2026, angered Muslims around the world and raised many questions about why parts of the Kaaba cloth were sent to Epstein. The Kaaba cloth, known as the Kiswa, is considered one of the holiest objects in the Islamic world and is replaced annually with special ceremonies. Pieces of the old cloth are usually gifted to high-ranking officials of Islamic countries. But how a piece of this cloth ended up in Epstein's hands is a question that remains unanswered. Related to this, there are emails in the Epstein Files from Aziza Al-Amadi, a Gulf businesswoman, informing Epstein that she had gifted him 3 pieces of the Kaaba cloth. She wrote in this email, "This is a special gift from me. I hope you appreciate it. These pieces are very sacred, and I sent them to you." This very valuable and unusual gift shows that Epstein had influence among some of the wealthiest and most powerful people in the Middle East region. He had managed, through his wealth and cunning, to gain the trust of these individuals and receive valuable gifts from them. But the revelations did not stop there. In their correspondence, bin Sulayem had discussed sexual relationships with women that Epstein had connected him with. In an email dated November 9, 2007, bin Sulayem wrote to Epstein that he had met one of these women in New York and said he did not have sex with her. This seemingly simple sentence indicates that bin Sulayem and Epstein had previously discussed arranging meetings with women for bin Sulayem. Bin Sulayem continued, writing, "Yes, after several attempts over several months, we managed to see each other in New York." He added that a misunderstanding had arisen because she was looking for business, while I was just looking for sex. This sentence clearly shows that bin Sulayem's purpose in connecting with these women was purely sexual. After these documents were released, the reactions were swift and severe. Sultan Ahmed bin Sulayem resigned from his positions as CEO and chairman of DP World. This resignation shows how damaging the revelations were for him and his company. The British Development Finance Institution and Canada's second-largest pension fund also announced that they were suspending all new investments in the company due to bin Sulayem's alleged connections with Epstein. This suspension of investments dealt a heavy blow to DP World's reputation and finances. But the question remains, was bin Sulayem the only person in the Middle East connected to Epstein? Documents show he was just one of several prominent figures in the region whose names appear in Epstein's emails. Chapter 4: Elon Musk and Epstein's Island – Controversial Conversations. In documents released in January 2026, there is correspondence between Epstein and Elon Musk, the technology billionaire and founder of Tesla and SpaceX. These emails show that Musk and Epstein discussed traveling to Epstein's Island on several occasions. Musk had previously said that Epstein invited him to the island, but he declined the invitation. In a 2024 interview, Musk said, "Epstein once invited me to his island, but I didn't go. He was a strange guy, and I didn't trust him." However, the new emails show that Musk discussed traveling there on more than one occasion. In emails from November 2012, Epstein asks how many people should be transported to the island by helicopter, and Musk replies that it would only be himself and his then-wife, Tallulah Riley. In another email on Christmas Day 2012, Musk asks if Epstein has any party plans because, in his words, he needs to be comfortable and relax. This email indicates that Musk was looking for a private place to relax and considered Epstein's Island a suitable option. However, there is no evidence that Elon Musk ever traveled to Epstein's Island, and he himself has denied it. Musk's spokesperson issued a statement after the emails were released, saying, "Mr. Musk never traveled to Epstein's Island." These conversations were merely planning for a potential trip that never happened. But critics believe that these conversations alone show how much effort Epstein put into attracting powerful people to his network. He used every opportunity to connect with prominent figures and lure them into his trap. These revelations also cost Musk. After the emails were released, Tesla's stock price dropped slightly, and some activists called for him to be more transparent. Musk wrote on Twitter, "I never went to Epstein's island. These emails were just planning for a trip that didn't happen. Stop the story." But was this response enough for public opinion? Many believed that Musk should explain more about the nature of his relationship with Epstein. Chapter 5. The mysterious request for 1,250 liters of sulfuric acid, destruction of evidence? One of the strangest and most controversial points in the new documents is Jeffrey Epstein's request for a massive amount of sulfuric acid. Documents show that in 2018, Epstein requested approximately 1,250 liters of sulfuric acid. Sulfuric acid is a powerful chemical that can dissolve body tissue and even bones. This substance has various industrial applications, but 1,250 liters is far too much for ordinary uses. This amount of acid is used for large-scale industrial purposes, not for a private island. This request was made on the same day that the FBI began its investigation into Epstein's involvement in sex crimes. The timing of these two events is highly suspicious. Epstein ordered this massive amount of acid precisely when he knew he was under investigation. This immediately sparked speculation that Epstein might have intended to destroy evidence of his crimes on the island. Although there is no definitive proof that this acid was used, the timing of the request is very suspicious. Experts say this amount of acid could destroy a great deal of criminal evidence. Dr. Michael Baden, the famous forensic pathologist, said about this, "Sulfuric acid can destroy body tissues and even bones in a short time. With 1,250 liters, you could completely obliterate several bodies." Some victims expressed concern that there might be bodies of other victims buried on the island and that Epstein intended to erase their traces with acid as well. Although these claims have not been proven, they add to the horror and mystery surrounding Epstein's island. Investigations showed that this acid never reached the island. Local authorities seized the shipment after learning of the request. But the question remains, what did Epstein need this amount of acid for? And had he made such requests before? Chapter 6. New images from Little St. James Island, Hell in Paradise. In December 2025, and then in January 2026, the House Oversight Committee released a series of new images from Little St. James Island. These images, for the first time, showed more details from inside the island and lifted the veil on new secrets. The released images included bedrooms, the pool area, expensive artworks, and a room containing a dental chair. The presence of a dental chair on a remote private island immediately raised suspicions that it might have been used for purposes other than dental treatment. Reports indicate that this chair was installed in such a way that it could be filmed from different angles. Victims also testified that Epstein sometimes filmed them and used these films for blackmail. One room had a blackboard with words like power and deception written on it. There were also names on the board, some of which were redacted in the published image. This blackboard resembled a war room or planning center, suggesting that Epstein and his associates were planning their activities. On the island, there was also a sundial and a movable statue of a Holstein Friesian cow that locals said was moved once a week and sometimes even daily. This constant movement of the statue was strange and inexplicable to the local people. Images were also released of the famous Blue Temple built on top of a hill. This temple was visible from a distance and raised questions for anyone passing by the island by boat. Planning documents that Epstein submitted in 2010 show that this building was designed as a music pavilion, but many observers believe it had a function beyond that. A former island employee said in an interview that temple was a strange place. Music was never heard from it, but its lights were sometimes on until midnight. Special people went there, Epstein's special guests. Chapter 7: The Mysterious Will and the 1953 Trust, Protecting Assets Until the Last Moment. The new documents revealed more details about Epstein's will and the 1953 Trust. 2 days before Epstein's death on August 10, 2019, he put the final piece of his financial puzzle in place. A will that was not just about dividing hundreds of millions of dollars in assets, but was designed in such a way as to make the path for victims to access compensation complicated, costly, and time-consuming. By transferring all his assets to a legal structure called the 1953 Trust, named after his birth year, Epstein effectively placed his wealth in a confidential wrapper. This trust was designed to hide the identity of the beneficiaries and the details of the asset distribution from public view, making it nearly impossible to pressure it into paying compensation to victims. This action, taken just 48 hours before his death, has become one of the most controversial examples of using legal tools to protect assets from civil lawsuits. Lawyers for the victims say this will was prepared with the aim of evading responsibility towards the victims. The value of his assets at the time the will was prepared was estimated between $577 million and $630 million. This amount included over $56 million in cash, luxury properties in New York, Florida, New Mexico, and Paris, 2 private islands in the Virgin Islands, several aircraft and expensive cars, as well as an art collection. This vast wealth could have compensated a significant portion of the victims' damages. In the list of 43 beneficiaries, the names include Ghislaine Maxwell, Epstein's brother Mark Epstein, his personal lawyer, his accountant, his personal pilot, and several of his longtime associates. This list shows that Epstein remained loyal to his inner circle until the very end of his life. The strange thing is that at the time of signing the will, Epstein was in federal custody and under special suicide watch. However, the 2 lawyers present during the will preparation process confirmed his mental health and legal capacity. This raises the question of how someone under suicide watch could prepare such a complex and calculated will. Mark Epstein, Jeffrey's brother, said in an interview, "My brother was very anxious in his last days. But he prepared this will. I think he knew something might happen to him." Chapter 8: Connections with Russia, Attempts to Infiltrate the Kremlin. The new documents also showed that Epstein attempted to establish connections with Russian officials. CNN reported that Epstein tried to contact high-ranking Russian officials, including Vladimir Putin. Although there is no evidence that such a meeting ever took place, emails show that Epstein was trying to connect with the Kremlin through intermediaries. In one email, Epstein writes to an associate, "Russia is the key to everything. If we can infiltrate there, the rest will be easy." In another email, Epstein discusses investing in Russian projects. He tells an associate, "There are many opportunities in Russia. I can bring American investors if they can provide access to high-ranking officials." The documents also show that Epstein was in contact with several other countries, including Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and Israel. In correspondence with Sheikh Jaber Youssef Jassim Al Thani, a Qatari businessman, Epstein advised on the Qatar blockade crisis. He advised Qatar to establish relations with Israel to gain favor with Donald Trump. These attempts show that Epstein saw himself as a political and economic advisor and tried to play a role in regional crises. He used his wealth and connections to infiltrate the highest levels of power. Chapter 9. New names on the list, faces previously unknown. One of the most important parts of the new documents was the revelation of new names that had never been made public before. Some of these names belong to prominent political, business, and cultural figures who were not previously thought to be connected to Epstein. This list includes the names of several senators and congressmen, senior executives of large companies, and several famous Hollywood figures. Many of these individuals were never accused of wrongdoing, but their names appear in Epstein's address book or in his emails. One of these names is a famous Hollywood actor who discussed attending a private party with Epstein in emails. The actor later stated in a statement that he never traveled to Epstein's island and only met him once at a public event. He said, "I didn't know Epstein. I only shook hands with him once at a party. That's all there is to it." Also, the name of a famous film director appears in the emails, corresponding with Epstein about financing a film project. The director said in an interview, "Epstein wanted to invest in my film. Like any director, I was looking for investors. But when I found out who he was, I cut off the relationship." The list also includes several international businessmen, some of whom are still active. Some of these individuals issued statements after the documents were released, denying any close connection with Epstein. But the important point is that many names are still redacted. In the released documents, parts of emails are covered with redacted. These redactions have increased speculation about the identity of these individuals. Chapter 10. Global reactions to the document release. The release of the new documents sparked widespread reactions around the world. From America to Europe and the Middle East, media and officials reacted to these documents. Epstein's victims welcomed this transparency, but some also expressed regret that these documents were released so late. Jennifer Arias, one of the victims, said, "Finally, the world sees that we were telling the truth. For years, they told us we were lying or just after money. Now the documents confirm what we said." The family of Virginia Giuffre, who died in April 2025, said in a statement, "Virginia fought her entire life for this moment. She is no longer here to see these documents, but we hope the truth ultimately prevails. We will continue her fight." In Britain, the release of the new documents renewed calls for Prince Andrew to testify in America. A spokesman for the royal family said in a brief statement that King Charles III is seriously following the matter. But critics believed this response was insufficient and that the royal family should deal with this issue more transparently. The British Prime Minister also said in Parliament, "We are taking this matter very seriously. If American authorities request cooperation, we will fully cooperate." In the UAE, Sultan Ahmed bin Sulayem's resignation dealt a heavy blow to DP World's reputation. The company said in a statement that it would continue to cooperate with judicial authorities and pursue any violations. But the company's shares fell after these revelations, and international investors became concerned. In America, several senators called for new investigations into the individuals named in the documents. Senator Richard Blumenthal said, "These documents are just the tip of the iceberg. We need to conduct more investigations so that everyone involved in these crimes is held accountable." Some Republican senators also called for investigating Epstein's connections with Democratic officials. Senator Lindsey Graham said, "These documents show that corruption exists in both parties. We must investigate without bias." Chapter 11. What Remains Unrevealed: Secrets That Remain. Despite the release of over 3 million documents, parts of this case still remain unrevealed. Some documents have been released with redactions due to victim privacy or national security. Many names are redacted in the documents. Some of these names belong to famous individuals who are still alive. Others belong to high-ranking officials whose positions prevent their names from being revealed. Mark Epstein, Jeffrey Epstein's brother, said in an interview, "Many documents have not yet been released. They say it's for privacy reasons, but I say it's to protect powerful people. My brother had a lot of information that, if revealed, would get many famous and powerful people in trouble." The House Oversight Committee has announced that more documents will be released in the coming months. A committee spokesperson said, "We are determined to reveal the whole truth. The American people deserve to know what happened. But we must balance transparency with protecting victims' privacy." One of the most important documents that has not yet been released is the complete list of Epstein's clients. It is claimed that Epstein had a complete logbook of people who traveled to his island or were involved in his crimes. Some believe this list includes hundreds of names from around the world. Also, the videos recorded from the island's hidden cameras have not been fully released. Victims said Epstein had cameras everywhere on the island and filmed his guests. These videos could be very important evidence. Chapter 12. Summary and Analysis: A Case That Remains Open. In this episode, we became acquainted with the most important release documents from the Epstein case. Documents that lifted the veil on new secrets and showed how extensive and complex Epstein's network was. Maxwell's emails confirmed the authenticity of the famous photo of Prince Andrew and showed how they tried to hide the truth. Epstein's connection with Sultan Ahmed bin Sulayem and the gift of the Kaaba cloth demonstrated his influence in the Middle East and led to the resignation of one of the region's most powerful businessmen. Elon Musk's emails, while not incriminating him, show how much effort Epstein put into attracting powerful people. The request for 1,250 liters of sulfuric acid, the new images from the island with its mysterious rooms and dental chair, the calculated will, and the 1953 trust. Connections with Russia and attempts to infiltrate the Kremlin, and the new names that appeared in these documents all paint a dark and complex picture of a man who took many secrets to his grave. But perhaps the most important lesson from these documents is that the Epstein case is not closed yet. Despite his death, despite Maxwell's conviction, despite the release of millions of documents, many questions remain unanswered. Who else was in this network? Why are some names still not revealed? Are there powerful people who can hide the truth forever? What was the 1,250 liters of acid for? Are there other victims who were never identified? In the next episode, we will look at the latest developments in this case. What happened in 2026 and what might happen in the future. We will also look at the lessons that can be learned from this case for the future. Until the next episode, I invite you to think about this. Why, despite all these documents and evidence, are many powerful people still not held accountable? Why has the full truth about the Epstein case not been revealed yet? And will the day come when everything becomes clear? Our duty as human beings is not to forget, to question, to follow up, so that perhaps one day there will be no more Epsteins who can commit crimes for decades and ultimately die without fully answering for them. Let us not forget Epstein's victims. They courageously spoke out so that perhaps other girls would not be victimized. They showed us that even against the greatest powers, one can stand and shout the truth. And let us remember, the truth always finds its way, even if it takes years. Sources. This documentary is based on the following reputable sources. Documents released under the Epstein Files Transparency Act, January-February 2026. Report of the House Oversight Committee, December 2025. U.S. Department of Justice Office of the Inspector General Report, March 2025. Miami Herald Investigations, 2018 to 2026. New York Times Reports, 2019 to 2026. Washington Post Reports, 2019 to 2026. BBC News Investigations, 2024 to 2026. CNN Reports, 2026. Mark Epstein interview with News Nation, January 2026. Victim interviews with reputable media. Thank you for staying with us through this long episode. I know it took a lot of your time, but this case is so complex and deep that it cannot be summarized in a few minutes. So if you've stayed this long, it means you care about the truth, and that is valuable to us. Until the next episode, stay healthy and seek the truth. Goodbye.